Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the GG Report. I'm glad you tuned in. I am your host, Godfrey Gichuki, and this is one more very exciting program. We are here on Elevate TV. We are also live on our social media platforms, Elevate TV Kenya, Facebook and YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed and you're watching from TV, please go to those particular social media platforms and subscribe so that you never miss a conversation. As always, the GG Report, we bring you exciting guests, exciting ideas. And today, I'm pleased to have a very special guest on the set with me, Engineer Simon Gure. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming all the way from Naivasha, your base, and joining me here this evening. I'm very, very pleased. Right. We are going to be focusing on energy, governance, and politics of economic development. As you very well know, right now we are dealing with many issues. Politics, economic development is a major agenda in our political discussion right now as we look forward to the August 9th election. So a lot of questions, ideas, models are coming up. One of the other issues that is a big conversation right now is the cost of fuel, which is part of the energy and other things. My guest is going to elaborate on that. So we're going to dive into that. And then, of course, the question of governance. We're going to delve into that. And like always, I always remind you, the GG Report is a platform for big, bold, honest conversation on a broad range of issues, socio-economic, philosophical, theological, and political. And today is economics and a bit of politics. And so welcome to the show. My guest over here is Engineer Simon Gure, like I had said, and he's an energy and business consultant with over 30 years experience. Engineer Gure worked for the old East African Power and Lighting Company Limited. Those of you who are old enough, you remember when KPLC was East Africa. He worked there, and then of course with the Kenya Power and Lighting, and also KenGen, that is the arm that generates power in charge of energy generation. And Engineer Gure is founder and pastor of Christ Transformation Church. This is based in a little town in called Engineer Town. I don't know, maybe that's a connection between his engineering career and the town where he was born in Nyandarua. And he's also a board member of a number of organizations. So he brings us a wealth of information, experience, and I'm going to be asking him all kinds of questions. So let's take the ride. Let's hear what this man of God and a professional and a governance expert has to tell us today. So welcome to the show. Engineer Gure, what inspired you to pursue engineering?
First, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here for a number of reasons, especially because I can see the good job that you're doing. It's very timely for this nation to have Elevate TV handle some of these issues. And these conversations are very, very important. Mm-hmm. I see in my broad view, God having created the spiritual and physical realms as one who is fully integrated in those realms.
Right.
And so we must discuss all these issues.
All right.
So I'm very excited for the good job you're doing.
Yes.
I got interested in energy management, while I was still in school. Mm-hmm. And the reason was I came from a very poor background. I was actually born in central Kenya. Mm-hmm. And those days we didn't have shoes. We walked to school We didn't have boarding schools. And part of the challenges that I met while I was studying was the lack of electricity. So we used kerosene lamps and all kinds of other things. So you can imagine when I came to the city and I saw that there is something like electricity, I got very excited. At the interview when I joined East African Power and Lighting, they asked me, why do you want to join us? And I told them, what other thing would anybody who is interested in engineering want to do except energy? At that time, I didn't know that energy is an absolute necessity for economic development.
Okay.
It's an absolute necessity for national development. So that began to excite me a bit because I saw the big difference that electricity could make. And later on, of course, as I went through school, I realized that I also didn't want to be a doctor. I could have been both. I was doing well in both subjects, science subjects. And initially, I think I was doing better in biology, but I couldn't have gone there. I didn't want to mess with people's bodies.
Okay.
It's easier to mess with a machine.
Yes.
than with a human life.
Okay.
But then later on, as I grew older, I now realized that you can mess more with a human life by messing with his energy and other economic parameters than you actually do by messing with his medical, biological condition. So
you joined the former, the first East Africa Power and Lighting. How was it? And so did you join that after university?
I actually got picked up by them from secondary school.
Okay.
Because I was not only quite interested, but I also pursued science subjects with a passion.
Okay.
And so I was doing quite well in school. So when they came to one of the national schools in which I was looking for students to sponsor to the University of Nairobi, I was one of the candidates.
Okay.
Then after those days, advanced level examinations, then they called me for an interview and they hired me.
Okay.
And so they took me to the university.
All right, that's amazing. That's a story that a lot of young people might not be knowing. That actually the company literally actually paid for your education.
Yes, they did.
And so that you can turn out to be an engineer. We need to distinguish these two things: energy, electricity, power. Is there a difference?
I like to view energy as that which contains the content which we can convert into either power. Or we can convert it into electricity.
Right.
When I say power, power is the capacity to produce electricity.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So you will have, say, a generating equipment rated in terms of power, and that would be kilowatts.
Yes.
Okay. So we say this is a 5 megawatt machine.
Yes.
Or 5,000 kilowatts. That's the same number.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when it begins to run, it will now produce electricity.
Right.
And that electricity that's produced is actually a form of energy.
Okay.
But then at the very basics of that machine, it could be using water to drive it.
Okay.
It could be using wind. It could be using geothermal power, geothermal energy.
Right.
So all that, those are forms of energy.
Right.
So the power part is a conversion.
Okay.
Is a conversion from one form of energy to another form of energy. For example, my vehicle uses fuel. That's got energy. And then it converts it in the engine and changes it into kinetic energy, so I can move. But so you move from energy through a power system to change the one form of energy to another.
Absolutely.
But literally, energy is broader.
Yeah.
So we'll have something like trees that take carbon dioxide and sunlight and mix it and produce wood fuel. And then we will use that wood fuel as energy to cook.
Okay, so we have the sector we call the energy sector.
Yes.
So that encompasses both the resources, the energy resources we have, the geothermal, underground, the hydro, the water, our rivers. So all those fall under this big umbrella of sources of energy. And then we have a whole system, a whole institution called KenGen, which really deals with the generation and then the power. What exactly led to the creation of KenGen, for example? Why did the policy shift? Because you've been in the system for a long time. Why did the policy shift to creating KenGen, for example?
This dates back in the 1990s. And the whole system that was in place that time was struggling.
Right.
In terms of delivering services to the people.
Okay.
And so we would have an economy that was growing faster than we were able as a nation to provide electricity for.
Okay.
And so we were lagging behind. And there was it was realized that the best way to handle this is not to find public resources, public money, to finance everything.
Okay.
Why don't we separate these different functions so that the private sector, who are interested in specific segments, can come into those segments and they can put in money that can help to sort of subsidize government efforts in the whole development agenda.
Okay.
And so starting from about 1998, there was a decision to separate KenGen from Kenya Power and Lighting to focus on generation. And it was known already at that time that private sector people are more interested in generation of power than in distribution of power or commercial activities. And so soon after that, come later in 2006, then KenGen also did an initial public offer and went public. And people invested. And up to today, people keep investing. KenGen is quoted on the stock exchange. And different investors have come in since then. Some own geothermal power stations. Some own thermal power stations. Some own now wind power stations. They are called wind farms. And others solar power stations. So the private sector is very able to do that. And that's an area that any nation will benefit if they split that. We then split out KETRACO, Kenya Transmission Company. We now have another company that has been dealing with our capacity to develop nuclear power. We now have REREC, which is Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, which is now even putting a better focus on renewable energy. So these institutions were formed to improve the way the system works.
There are a host of very, very many institutions that are involved in ensuring that power comes through that socket. And so that's very important for our people to know, so that then as we criticize the government, we know actually there are private sector people whose money make it possible for us to draw some power over there.
That's right.
Are we generating enough energy, or rather, let me specifically say electric power, because that's the one that a lot of the ordinary people interact with?
I think the answer to that question is not straightforward. It's not a yes or no. But basically, if you look at the generating capacity that we have in the country, it's within the excess level limits that you need for the system to operate well. Let me break that down for you. We have what we are consuming on a daily basis. And we have the generation equipment. You always need the generation equipment to be able to do more than what you need. Otherwise, you'll be in deficit. Kenya is in that position now, and it's a very comfortable position. Nevertheless, the demand is not constant throughout the day. So during the day, when we are running our equipment, we are at work, we are doing all kinds of things, factories are on, there is what we call the base load, which Kenya is able to supply continually. Now, when the evening comes, people go home, the consumption of power goes up. And between 6 o'clock and 10 p.m. at night, we have what's called the peak load. And during that time, we have to switch on more generation equipment. Now, those generation equipment are not the ones that you need for running throughout the day. You now need those which you can switch on for a short time and switch off. And usually, those are the ones that burn the fuel. And so you need a mix of what we call base load generation and peak load generation. And so, and we have both. We are comfortable now. But I can say that the reason I say the question is not a straight answer is because there are very many areas in Kenya which still don't have electricity. And part of the reason of that is taking power there with these very heavy, very big pylons that take power across the country is very expensive. And so usually you might find a solution that where there is enough economic activity, the government can go in and incentivize installation of solar power and wind power and maybe some diesel, or let me call it fossil fuel power generation to just supply power within that location.
Instead of transporting it all the way.
Instead of transmitting it across long distances. And there are still some people who are unserved.
Right.
So you'll find that Kenya, we're close to about real service, about 70% of the population have access to electricity, but there's still 30% which don't have access to electricity.
Okay. In terms of Africa, within Africa, I think I saw a report where we reported Kenya is at 85%, access, and we are among the top 5 or top 10. How do we stand in terms of, I believe you have an idea how we stand in terms of the Africa region?
The report you saw is correct, but let me say that there is a slight difference between access and available.
Okay.
And availability. Access means that you're within range.
Okay.
If for example, we have a county commissioner's office,
yes,
100 meters from your house,
yes,
and they have power there,
yes,
you can literally connect to your house.
Yes,
we'll count you as within the remit of access.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you are 10 kilometers away, you don't have access.
Okay.
Okay. So when we say 85% access, we're talking about people within range. When I talked about 72% are actually these people who can plug into the wall, and they have power in their house.
Okay, so 70% can plug to the wall, 85% are within access.
Yes.
Okay, that's very important. Okay, good. Now, you worked at the highest level possible, highest level in NGen. I think at one point you acted as the CEO of, was that KenGen?
Yes.
Yes. So, where do we stand in terms of governance? Are you happy with the governance structures that we have that manage, especially some of our institutions, the institutions you are aware that you worked in, especially the power, the engine, the generation guys?
The KenGen.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the governance system in Kenya, I would say, is very good from the top down.
Right.
And what that means is that we have a good law.
Okay.
So when you look at the laws that govern the entire system of power generation, we have very good laws.
Okay.
Number 2, we have the institutional capacity.
Okay.
So we have an institution for power generation. We have an institution called Geothermal Development Company for looking for the geothermal resources.
Okay.
We have Kenya Power and Lighting that does market-related and distribution work.
Okay.
We have KETRACO, Kenya Transmission Company, that does the transmission. We have the regulator, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority.
Yes.
We have a dispute review board.
Oh, okay.
We have the whole host of the institutional capacity, which is part of the governance system.
Yes.
Is in place.
All right.
And all these institutions are effective.
All right.
All of them are effective. And when I say effective, is able to operate.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes,
and all of them are led in policy by the Ministry of Energy.
Okay.
And the Ministry of Energy does a very good job. But then when you come into the institutions themselves, there is now the skills and the knowledge gap that can create governance issues.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
So, for example, the Ministry of Energy may not be the right institution to decide which form of geothermal power plant is required.
Yes.
To be installed.
Yes.
It's people who would, the people who would have that information are inside KenGen.
Yes, the technical guys.
The technical people.
Yes.
If they have enough knowledge, they will give the country the lowest cost, best system for converting the energy. Of course, that is a cost. And then that will fuel it will be the energy that the nation needs for development. So the governance is a whole host of issues.
Right.
And I would say that in Kenya, we are not that badly off. We have good laws. We have institutional capacity. We have a good level of, knowledge within the systems.
Yes.
But then you never lack bad depots.
Okay.
In every bag. It's possible that there would be some gaps.
Okay.
For example, people are struggling across the country to understand what's going on in Kenya Power and Lighting.
Right.
We don't have ready answers. But we do know that the people who are there, the Minister of Energy, the board of directors at Kenya Power and Lighting, they are struggling to make things work well.
Okay.
Yeah? And so I would say that we may look at institutions individually,
yes,
and look at why it is that they're in the situation where they are.
Okay, so you wouldn't change any of those major structures. The law is okay. The institutions themselves, we probably don't need to create an extra institution at the moment. Perhaps maybe the area that would need focus is at the actual specific institutions, maybe human capacity, the people that are there, if you can have much better outcome out of those kind of people, right?
Absolutely. And the way these institutions are conversing with the government.
Engineer Ngure, I would be very unfair to our audience if I don't ask you to comment about fuel. Are we going to see those prices come down? Any hope?
I wish I could give hope.
Yes.
But let me first say that Kenya is not a producer of fossil fuels.
Okay.
We have been exploring for fossil fuels. We have found some petroleum in the northern part of the country.
Yes.
And there's still a lot of infrastructural development that
Yes.
needs to be put in place
Okay.
to make that oil useful.
Okay.
Because it's mined out of the ground as crude oil. It needs to be refined.
Right.
Refineries are expensive.
Right.
They also need to serve large populations
Okay.
for them to operate economically.
Yes.
And so because of that, we haven't quite got to where we can say we are an oil producing country.
Okay. Yes.
Because of that, we import all of our petroleum products.
Okay.
For that reason, any shift in the international markets affects us
Directly.
directly. And we have got major shifts that have happened in the last two and a half years. Major shifts.
Okay.
And they started with the COVID-19 problems.
Okay. Perhaps you can feel as in there, maybe that's probably the kind of information Kenyans need to hear, that it's not a problem of last month.
No.
Okay.
It started when the countries began to scale down the interaction of the workforces that are involved in production.
Okay.
And then it spilled over into the transport system. You know, people moving up and down.
Right.
People were having COVID in the ships that supply, that bring the fuel.
Okay.
And because of that, they have to be evacuated. Because you remember, the first wave and second wave of COVID was
Devastating, yes.
very devastating.
Yes.
And many people died.
Okay.
So because of that, there were many challenges that came in from production to the supply chains and the off-taking of different nations.
Okay.
And at the same time, consumption in many countries went down. You remember there was a time in Kenya that even moving between counties was not allowable.
Yeah. It
We
was all
had a
shut down.
stay-home policy.
And with the cars rotting on the parking and the fuel just sitting in the tanks.
Yes. And so because of that, consumption went down.
Okay.
So a lot of disruption happened. Now, also, electricity consumption in Kenya went down because factories shut down.
Okay.
And all kinds of things. So supply of goods, supply of products, everything got disrupted.
Okay.
And then just when we were coming out of the COVID with challenges, then there was this war that began between Russia and Ukraine.
Right.
And those two are powerhouses. One of them in providing fuel, gas to the whole of Europe comes, a lot of it comes from Russia and quite a good percentage from Ukraine. And both of them are producers of a lot of grain that people need for our own fuel.
Right.
Yeah, our own food.
Yes.
And so because of that war, we've had another disruption.
It's very important that people get the problem right, that actually what we are experiencing now, the energy crisis and the escalation, especially of fuel, it's actually a problem that is a spillover from the disruption of COVID.
Correct.
Plus food prices, shortage of grains, shortage of unga and stuff like that.
Yes.
And so we probably have to wait a little longer for the system to calibrate, and hopefully we can have a turnaround. Is that the case?
Absolutely. And we have to use all international diplomacy to talk to these two fighting bulls, so that they tell them the grass is suffering. You know, so the whole world is in crisis because of this. Can we normalize this situation? Can we bring it back to normal?
Okay.
But at the same time, we also need to know these are wake-up calls.
Right.
And they're wake-up calls for nations to begin to think differently.
Okay.
We always thought international integration is a solution. And to some extent, that has worked. But now we begin to think even at the home level, we need to begin to think about how can I produce my own vegetables?
Okay.
How can I produce sufficient grain in Kenya instead of importing?
And instead of thinking International integration, while we are pushing international integration, while that is a good thing, we must not forget that if trouble happens, if there is a disruption in that integration thing, actually it affects us directly. So
Absolutely.
we cannot afford to be totally dependent on other people.
And you cannot say that your economy is running sustainably if somebody else can control up to 15, 20, 30% of your capacity to run as a nation. So we need to begin to think about those things. And I think it's a wake-up call across the world that we need to think about more empowering our own people to do that which they need to do so that we are stable, we can rely on those markets. Because let me give you another example. We export a lot of tea and a lot of coffee.
Yes.
What happens if you don't get fertilizer for your farm?
Right.
Your production goes down.
Yes.
What if that nation is no longer stable enough to import your products?
Okay.
You also have another challenge.
Right.
So you need to develop a system that builds resilience
Within
into your own economy.
Okay.
And focusing on internal and regional economies is possibly something that is very important for us to consider at this particular time.
Absolutely.
So that in Africa we begin to talk about the opportunity for intra-Africa trade.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I like the way we are now shifting. We're shifting towards, looking at the local issues and the local politics. We're going to take a short break, engineer. And when we come back, I want us to return to the issue of now the politics of development, because now that's where we need to bring in the issue. Is it international problems? Is it our own international internal issues, and how we can deal with that? So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe you have learned a lot based on our conversation so far. We are going to address the issue of economic development and the politics around it, and I believe you're going to hear more and benefit. So stay tuned. We take a short break. We're coming back shortly. Don't go away. Keep it Elevate TV.
Life Church International Nairobi invites you to the Standing Strong Ministers Conference 2022 that will be held on 5th to 8th July 2022 at the Apostolic House, Kenya Cinema Plaza, Moi Avenue, Nairobi, hosted by Apostle David and Pastor Asunta Juma. Morning sessions will be from 9:30 to 11 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. Afternoon sessions will be from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and the Apostolic Clinic from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. The guest ministers will be Bishop Stanley Mwalili of Green Pastures Tabernacle, Apostle William Kimani of Kingdom Seekers Fellowship, Bishop Titus Mbai of Destiny Worship Center, Thika, Apostle Yemi Adefarasin from Nigeria, and Bishop Isaka Wawire of Word of Faith Church, Mbale. The theme of this conference is Luke chapter 22 verse 31 to 32. This conference will be live on Elevate TV and streaming on Facebook and YouTube.
Welcome back. This is the Gigi Report. We are here. I have a guest engineer, Simon Gure. He's got a wealth of experience. He's worked at the top level in energy sector. He's a business consultant, energy consultant, and he's telling us very, very interesting things about what's going on and about the energy sector and all the other dynamics around our nation. And now we want to dive into the politics of economic development, because that's a big issue. It's a big agenda right now in our nation. So, Engineer Ngure, we've seen how, for example, we may be doing, our own things our way, but as long as our economy is dependent very largely on inputs from outside, fuel, the hydrocarbons, we have to import that. And so, as you described, our hands are tied. So if fuel prices go up in the international market, we have to pay more. So we are very clear about that. Now let's talk about our local politics. What one thing, if Kenya got right, can accelerate economic development? That's where I want us to start from.
Now, we have a number of quick answers to that.
All
because
right.
it's really very difficult to pin economic development on one thing.
Okay.
But we can say these are the number of areas that we need to deal with.
Okay.
For Kenya's economic growth to accelerate.
Okay.
And a number of them have thankfully been tackled to some extent. Mm-hmm. And a number need to be addressed now. Mm-hmm. Because usually the parameters they operate in a manner that one feeds into another.
Okay.
Let me give you a background to that. Mm-hmm. Economic development is normally measured in gross domestic product.
Yes.
That's a number that we all know. We
Yes.
hear GDP.
GDP. Everybody talks GDP.
Everybody says, talks
including
about GDP.
politicians without degrees.
Exactly.
No. You just need to say GDP is going down, and
Yes.
I'm going to take it up.
Yeah, I'm going to take that up.
Okay.
Now, gross domestic product is measured using a number of benchmarks. Mm-hmm. Some of them have to do with how much money is being invested in the country. Mm-hmm. And so when you have something like highways being built, mm-hmm. you can see GDP going up.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that the national production capacity is going up. Mm-hmm. So you might find in that kind of a situation that if, for example, we have large companies mm-hmm. that are able to do big tenders, mm-hmm. developing infrastructure, mm-hmm. they can make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And so people who can afford to buy shares in those companies or who can participate in those tenders, mm-hmm. they get richer. Mm-hmm. But the people who don't have that access mm-hmm. may actually be getting poorer. Mm-hmm. So we have a situation worldwide. This is a worldwide phenomenon.
Yes.
Where the rich are getting richer mm-hmm. and the poor are getting poorer.
Okay.
So the trouble about economic development is that you cannot say that you're having a stable economic development mm-hmm. when people are going under.
Okay.
And no matter how high those who are flying are flying.
Okay.
So we need what's called a trickle-down system.
Okay.
We need to be able to get those resources out of the hands of those who have them mm-hmm. and bring them all the way down.
Okay.
Because the system sustains itself through a continual feeding mm-hmm. of the basic products that are needed by all those people who are getting poorer.
Okay.
They need food, they need clothing, they need education, they need to move from one place to another. They need to be enabled to produce.
Okay. Okay.
If they're made unable to produce, mm-hmm. The system is caving in on itself.
Okay, and because I know there are theories, there are two competing theories, the bottom-up, the trickle-down, and politicians have taken sides. Some politicians have said trickle-down, not good, bottom-up, good. But anyway, before we get into that, caught up in that, mm-hmm. I think what you're describing is, for example, infrastructure development mm-hmm. is a high capital-intensive, venture.
Yes.
So high capital, it has to be accumulated, it has to be brought in, and that requires... It's not the Mwananchi game, for sure.
No.
And they are not able to participate other than labor and stuff like that. Maybe some of the basic input like steel, cement, and welding, and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But never really, it's not enough. So you're saying, while that can be celebrated, mm-hmm. the problem is not everyone can participate. So we need to focus on the lower side of this production equation where the bulk of the people are able to participate. Is that what you're saying?
And yes, and the way that's done, for mm-hmm. example, you build a highway
yes.
Going north.
Yes.
I live in Naivasha.
Yes.
We have a proposal to build a highway going from the dual carriage, where the dual carriage ends here in Liloni,
yeah.
and going all the way towards Nakuru.
Yes.
So now you can't pay for that highway in a year.
Right.
So what you need to do is get international financiers or people with deep pockets mm-hmm. to finance that for a period of 30 years.
Yes.
Now within that 30 years, mm-hmm. the road must be used sufficiently
okay.
to pay more mm-hmm. or to facilitate more business.
Okay.
To increase capacity for production more than it costs to build the road.
Okay.
Otherwise, the road itself is a bad investment.
Okay.
So first, you need to make sure that infrastructure development comes in at the right time, mm-hmm. going to the right place to incentivize the right parameters of economic development.
Absolutely. And I want you to open that up, because I think that's the conversation we are not having. So the right time, the right place.
Right infrastructure.
Yes.
Right economic activity. So if we were to say, for example, we're going to build a pipeline of oil, it's going to come from maybe Gamia, where they found oil, Gamia 1, Gamia, those wells.
Yes.
And it's going to go all the way to Lamu. How many years do we need to pay for that?
Okay.
How much oil is that going to transmit, to transport?
Yes.
What's the cost of oil?
Okay.
And that's why we do projections. And you see now, we talk about 30-year projection
Yes.
of how the market will behave. And so you must make sure that there is a basic minimum of market behavior that is in your hands.
Right.
So that you can control how that capital investment is paying you back.
Okay.
Okay? If you peg that, for example, to a level of over 85% as internationally sourced financing, and you're going to be paying in Kenya shillings, you need to think about what else am I exporting to bring the dollars that will pay the person I am paying for this loan that I took in, say, Chinese yuan.
Yes.
Because if I don't do that,
Right.
the economy will again cave in on itself. Not because this mathematics wasn't working well, but because I didn't have all the parameters. So it's not one thing that produces economic development.
Right.
It's a thinking around all these macroeconomic and international business metrics. And so you have to have some projections. That's what our national treasury should be helping us with. Now, once all that's done by the economists, and the numbers have been crunched, and they say this is the best thing to do, then we should go with that. But we should pursue it to make sure that it's effective. So if we took our highway to Nakuru, and we know Nakuru is a high horticultural production area, and then we know that what they produce can be value added and exported. If we now don't follow up with fertilizer, follow up with the agronomists, follow up with sufficient studies into what they farm, laboratories, follow up with a system of ensuring the seeds they are using are the best seed for that area. And then we have factories that value add. Then we have agreements with countries that will take that product. And we are transporting it at a very reasonable cost so that it gets there and benefits the nation.
Absolutely.
Then the money we used to spend the road will never be repaid.
Absolutely. And by the way, off the set, we were discussing a very interesting example, which, and we can use that example, the avocado, business, which apparently, I hear there is a lot of money in avocados, okay? And you told me that, some people went to China, to a supermarket in China, and bought a piece of avocado. Was it at 240?
It was 240 plus.
240 Kenya shillings.
Yes.
Of the shelf in a supermarket in China.
It was on social media.
Oh, all right. So what needs to change?
And this is why I talked about what I called trickle down.
Right.
The government of the day needs to put policies in place, which either puts caps on how much middlemen can make.
Okay.
Because if you go to the avocado producing areas, the one fruit is an average of about 20 shillings. Some places it's cheaper, others it's 24, 25, but that's about 20 shillings against 240 in an overseas market.
Okay.
The same fruit.
All right.
So if we can be able to say this is how much it costs to take this fruit from the farmer, to package it, to transport it, to get it into the hands of those who will sell it, and they need to make a profit.
Right.
The transport people need to make a profit. Those who packaged it need to make a profit. If we can align and assign reasonable profitability in that whole process, then we can see what should we then pay the farmer so that the farmer is also making a profit. And the farmer is able to sustain production or even increase production.
All right.
And the national policy thought should be empower the farmer to produce more.
Yes.
I love the price. I want that price to be kept there.
Yes.
Okay? So I want to keep that market. But I want the farmer to produce more.
Yes.
So I should be thinking subsidy. I should be thinking, where do I go and hack and take some of the profit out of that man's hands and give it to the farmer?
Okay.
And that's where the policy should read something like, an avocado taken from the farmer has a minimum price of 60 shillings.
Okay.
Okay? Then the rest of the market, let it deal with that. Okay? But I empowered the farmer.
Right.
And then I say, I'm going to give the farmer fertilizer. Anybody who's farming avocado, this is how I'm going to incentivize you to produce more avocado.
Okay.
That's what used to happen with coffee. That's what used to happen with tea. And when those policies were in place, this nation was a flying exporter of those products.
Okay.
But when we step back from policies that empower the farmer, and we let the market forces play, the farmer at the bottom of the pyramid will never have sufficient authority within the market to be sustainable.
Okay, but that also creates another problem because, for example, the Minister of Agriculture says he's going to bring down the price of fertilizer from 6,000 to 2,000. So whatever miracle, he's going to do that. So who is going to pay that difference of 4,000 shillings?
Number one, it can never be a miracle.
Right.
Somebody has to pay.
Isn't it the same farmer who is going to be taxed out of his, whatever little he's going to make out of his farm?
Well, it could be that farmer. It could be another farmer.
All right.
And so we first must make sure that the economic production centers of our economy are sustained for growth.
Okay.
If we cannibalize those, if we say, for example, the coffee farmer is going down and coffee has a premium price in the world market.
Right.
And we are not supporting that.
Yes.
Because maybe we are focusing on giving fertilizer, subsidized fertilizer to the tea farmer, and the tea is having a good price, but not probably as premium as coffee. For example, the last 2 years, we've had premium prices of coffee because we had trouble with Brazil and other coffee producing countries. So coffee has had very good returns, but our production has been going down. So we didn't take advantage of that. But basically what I'm saying is all the areas where we have high production, they are areas for support.
Okay.
All the areas where we have sinkholes, where we are putting in a lot of money to be able to sustain the smooth working of our nation, that's areas that we need support. So, and that's very important to put in perspective.
Yes.
For example, if we're importing a lot of maize, we are importing a lot of fertilizer, we're importing a lot of, say, what else? Wheat. Those are areas that we need to think about. How do we increase our own production?
Okay.
So that we stop sending our money out of the country, so to speak.
Right.
And we do our own production, which supports our own people by reducing the import bill.
Okay. Okay.
And at the same time, we are increasing that which we are exporting and producing more from it. So you see, those are two areas that you need to deal with. Rather, you need to improve on what you can do well.
Yes.
And you need to stop the leakages.
Okay. Okay. Absolutely.
So that is the two centers that if the economy center can focus on, you can have an economy that has a great opportunity to grow.
Right. So is it possible, because politicians are promising us 100 days, is it possible for any one government, whichever of the two possible, the two top candidates with their policies, is it possible for any of those two to be able to turn around this economy? Forget about the 100 days, maybe 1 year. Is it possible to turn, and what would that involve?
Number one, I think that as a nation, we do have an opportunity to grow this economy.
All right.
We have land, we have people, we have fairly good weather. It can be improved with maybe changing from rain-fed production to drip irrigation. We have an opportunity to add value to our products. We have very good access to international markets.
Right.
But that needs to come together in a design system.
Okay.
Let me give you a simple example.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago, up to last month, we had a serious shortage of baby formula.
Okay.
In the United States.
Okay.
Much of that is produced from peanuts. Western Kenya produces some of the best peanuts in the world. If we could be able to take that and package it and sell it somehow to the United States,
yes,
or at least position that industry
right,
in a manner where we can up the production within a few months, we can sell that product, we have a good opportunity for growth. So what I'm saying is, we have a lot of potential
Actually,
within our nation. And what we need to do is locate that potential, locate the supply, the system, the chain of value product, or of unlocking that value, and locate the market, and then go ahead and do what we need to do to incentivize that and sell. We came back recently to farming cotton.
Okay.
Because
okay.
cotton was ever needed, always needed in the world.
Right.
But we didn't take opportunity. We actually didn't focus on that sector. Our cotton mills shut down.
Right.
Now we're reviving them again because we always need clothes.
Right.
But it's because we went one way in terms of policy than another way. Now we've also always got to remember that the people will push for something that will benefit them.
Okay.
But we've got to give them a solution that is properly well thought out.
Okay. Okay.
With projections, with numbers. Okay? And that's the work of the government to produce.
Government can have nice policies.
Yes.
But I've never seen a district officer, digging up a farmer's land himself.
Yes.
You understand? So the farmer has to dig his own land.
Yeah.
So the farmer does the actual work. The government officer may have all the ideas and information and all that and may support them. How do you incentivize the actual producer?
Now, the people on the ground need to have two pieces of information.
Yes.
That the market for our products is not just international.
Okay.
There is a very strong local demand.
Okay.
For most of the products we have. We import maize every year. We import sugar every year. We import wheat every year. We produce rice, but we still import.
Okay.
We actually import about 30% of all the food that is staple in this nation.
Okay.
That's a 30% opportunity.
Okay.
In the meantime, we are having post-harvest losses even in that which we're producing. If we just plugged that, we possibly could have a better equation. But then the point is, we have an internal demand that we are not actually supplying to.
Absolutely.
And so the farmers need to identify what is that which I can produce that has a demand, and where is that demand? So the same way I'm saying, let's do this at the international level.
Yes.
We should be doing that at the local level.
Absolutely.
I come from a milk production area.
In fact, because I want you to speak to this, because I want us to turn this to the church.
Yes.
Because, right now you are the founder of Christ Transformation Church,
yes,
in Nyandarua. And I know you're very, very passionate about empowering the church people and all that. And most of our viewers are church, based viewers. So what are we missing? What is the local person missing? And how can the church leaders and people with the information like you who have an experience in the marketplace and also in the ministry, how can we connect that? So what needs to happen?
Number one.
Yes.
Basic information.
Yes.
Nobody can be better than you.
Right.
In that for which you are located divinely to produce.
Okay.
Let's put it like this.
Yes.
We can never import gas from Qatar.
Yes.
And use it to make fertilizer and sell fertilizer to Qatar.
Right.
They are the best located to use that product.
Yes.
For their own gain.
Yes.
So the natural ability that God has invested in every nation needs to be given the highest priority.
Right.
It's a redemptive gift.
Okay.
If I find oil in Kenya, it's a product that can redeem this nation from servitude and from being treated badly. It will put me on the international table for negotiations.
Yes.
So anything you can produce well.
Every person is located somewhere where there is a redemptive gift.
And
there.
it's very close to you.
Absolutely.
Always very close to you. We're suffering with lack of rain, but we have water tables that are 30 meters below. Ground. So if we just dug wells, we could get the water out and farm.
Okay.
And some of these ideas are in the Bible.
Right.
So which is why I like your question about what can Christians do.
Yes.
We have the trademarks in the Bible. In Genesis 26, when there was a drought, God said to Isaac, don't go to Egypt. But what did Isaac do? He said, I will bless you. When God says I will bless you, it means I will empower you.
Right.
It doesn't mean I'll produce the food for you.
Right.
No, I will empower you.
Right.
But Isaac went back and dug the wells.
Yes.
And I believe that in the same year, the only way he could have got 100-fold
Yes.
out of the harvest
Yes.
was by irrigation. So you've got to bring knowledge into faith.
Okay.
The two have to work together.
Right.
And it's time for pastors to begin to interpret the Bible the right way. And that's what we call transformation. Transformation focuses on the mind, and mind is the business center for the human being.
You can say that again. Mind is the business center for the human being.
For the human being.
Right.
So I have to use my brain, my mind.
Right.
It's a gift. My brain is not a curse.
Right.
I should think, and I should put my thought to use.
Right.
And I have 2 eyes to see.
But you know, men of God, we've been preaching faith, you know, and speaking in tongues and, you know, casting out demons. So, are you saying that that's, you know, we should...
No, we need to do that. We need to do that.
Yes.
But not in the exception
Okay.
of the other. Because
And not at the expense.
Not at the expense of the other. Because you see, God's plan was to have man on earth have dominion.
Absolutely.
And dominion is twofold.
Yes.
Number one, you have to be properly spiritually located.
Yes.
Which means that you can't have demons around you and you're prospering.
Yes.
Okay, so we need that part.
So that needs
And
to be...
that part is priestry.
Yes.
The priest's work is to set up a good spiritual environment.
Absolutely.
But then God also wants us to have dominion in the level of being kings.
Right.
Remember in Revelation chapter 5 verse 10, he says he wants us to be kings and priests.
Right.
Okay? He was always seeking a kingdom of priests, or priests that are kings.
All right.
So towards God, we engage spiritually, we create a spiritual environment, he downloads the blessing. He downloads the capacity.
Right.
But it's us to take that capacity and convert it using our naturally given endowments into business systems.
Right.
And that's the work of transformation. That's the work of kings.
Right.
So if you look at Abraham, we now hear he had dug wells.
Yes.
What for? Water. What for? He had herds of cattle.
Yes.
And those were a business system.
Right.
We heard he had an army. At one time he went to rescue his nephew Lot with 318 men developed in his own house,
Yes.
trained and armed. What is he doing training an army? His mindset was that of a king.
Absolutely. If you are king, you need some money.
So every pastor should be a priest.
Yes.
On Sunday we cast out demons.
Yes.
But from Monday to Saturday,
Yes.
we should develop king systems.
I'm sure this is something you've thought very well. You began a ministry and it's growing and all that. What's your vision? What do you want to see happen?
I want to see seamless integration
Okay.
of all of God's will on earth.
Right.
And political systems are part of God's will.
All right.
All authority comes from God.
Absolutely.
We need the church to do its part. We need the church to help the national government to see the details of what's going on in the local arena.
Okay.
At the same time, we also need to help our people see what's going on in our neighbors' arena.
Right.
I talked to you about that I come from an area we produce milk.
Yes.
You can't sell milk to me in Nyandarua.
Right.
I'm a producer like you.
Yes.
So why don't we take it to where it's not being produced?
All right.
Or at least enough of. And
Okay.
Nairobi is one area where you don't find a lot of cows.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
even if they
there
had
are no
them,
cows here.
I think
yeah.
they would kill them for meat.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
why don't we bring our milk here?
Yes.
So putting a system there that can serve another part of the economy that's in need is part of what the church should be doing.
Absolutely.
And so my vision of transformation is that any person that can produce something, and all of us are well equipped to produce something, should think production.
Absolutely.
Number two, we should think market. And if we need to package it, either to survive the journey or whatever, package it, we need to go ahead and develop systems for that.
Okay.
So churches should not be thinking how their sons and daughters should be getting employed by government. They should be thinking about how to use their redemptive gifts to create employment in their locality.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell, this has been a very, very enriching conversation. And I have to thank Engineer Simon Gore. Thank you so much for coming on this show. And you've shared with us very powerful ideas. The idea of redemption, I think this is very valuable, and I hope we can find time to come back and maybe take on other issues and reach them. And thank you so much for staying tuned and watching. This is the GG Report. I've been your host, Godfrey Gichuki. We got to bring this to a close. God bless you, and thank you for staying tuned in. We'll see you another day, same time, same place. Thank you very much. Bye for now.